Oh, hi there. I'd like to talk a little bit about, in more depth, of the legalization of marijuana and why I'm not totally on board with it. I mean, you can not agree with something, but see that there are benefits from it. Like, for example, if it were to clean up the downtown east side, that would be a benefit, kind of scrub clean the nasty bits of the Metro Vancouver area. However, this would take at least a generation, probably longer, probably several, before it could make any significant impact. Because those poor wretches in those areas are dependent on their medications and things like that that they self-take or are prescribed or of whatever nature. This is a bit of an iffy topic. However, you gotta try and take things into consideration. Um, yeah, I mean, aside from that, because, obviously that's not the story of the average Canadian, is that marijuana, on the internet, there has been a virulent campaign to really, really push it. And I've said this before on other legalization of marijuana videos, and the supposed heroes, the champions of, the movement, most notably Mark Henry and the guy who plays Ricky from Trailer Park Boys and Justin Trudeau. I don't have to agree with either of them. I don't have to, go on board with them because they are, popular cultural icons for Canadian society. As a matter of fact, I don't even like Canada as a country. It's filled with people who are cunts. And they'd be cunts whether they were sober, stoned, or regular anyway. And that's the fact of the matter, is that almost everybody who lives in Canada is a cunt. I mean, some may perceive me as being one because I don't agree with them. Fair enough, I suppose. You're allowed to have your opinion because there's plenty of people telling me I'm not allowed to have an opinion. It's like, no, you don't get to decide if I'm allowed to have an opinion or not. I know Canadians in particular are used to saying, this is the way it is, you're not allowed to have a different opinion. No, you fuck off, because I don't agree with you. Anyway, I mean, I had made points before of saying, like, look, if the ingredients for marijuana, well, to grow marijuana, dominate the agricultural market, which they want to do because you have to understand there's a driving force behind the marijuana movement. And it's not just things like Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Um, sure, drunk driving is a very real issue. Nobody should ever drive drunk or anywhere near drunk. I don't drive at all, so you guys can go fuck yourselves if you plan on using that as an excuse against me. Big time go fuck yourselves. Anyway, yeah. So, marijuana. Um, and the driving force behind it and how it's less than honorable. Mothers Against Drunk Driving, it's not that great an organization. It was created out of lesbian hatred for men. And, throughout history, okay, men have been a bunch of cunts. Not my family tree, but other men have been cunts. As I said, most people were cunts. And the people who work in Mothers Against Drunk Driving are cunts themselves. In a different way, but no less cunts. And, like, what's the other driving force behind the marijuana movement? Okay, this is fairly, simplistic, and I should have thought of it on my own, but I got clued in when I was watching the television. Cigarette companies. Cigarette companies are pushing the marijuana movement because they realize that, well, tobacco is so fucked up at this point because they've added so many chemicals to it and everything like that that it's just shit. It tastes like shit, looks like shit, and the only people who really smoke it are people who don't understand what tasting shit is, and people who knew it when it was better and have been inclined to continue smoking because they're addicted to it. Like, there's no way I would support the cigarette industry. I mean, I'm from the South too, so like, I know that's where a lot of the tobacco used to be grown anyway, and things like that. But you know what? No, it's all a bunch of bullshit. I mean, for the nostalgia purpose, I may have one cigarette like once in a blue moon, or once in a very long time, and that'll be about it. In fact, whenever I bought cigarettes in the past, I've usually given most of the packet to my coworkers. I don't like smoking. I mean, I have bought packets of Maharis, and then being a little bit more expensive, I was a little bit more stingy about handing those around. And it's a simple cigar. And, I've had stoners go, yo, man, like, we could totally make a blunt out of this. I'd be like, yeah, if they were yours and you paid for them, but I bought them and they're mine and I don't smoke marijuana. So go fuck yourself. Because as I said, if you live in the Metro Vancouver area, in particular anywhere in Canada, you can't avoid being near weed, and it's not something to be afraid of. It's not like, oh no, if I smell it and some grungy homeless person offers it, I'm gonna fall into the endless trap of marijuana addiction, reefer madness. No, this stuff tastes like shit, it looks like shit, and I don't like how it makes me feel. And if you try being in a room where people have been smoking marijuana and there's not enough windows and things like that, for me, it makes me feel bilious. I'd rather drink a 26er of alcohol, to be honest with you. That sounds like a lot of alcohol, but, I didn't say what time period that would be, of course. Um, Eventually, I would be able to drink 26 a 26er of alcohol, but obviously I'm not, buying the bottle, opening it up, cranking it, and go glug, 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 glug until it's gone, because that's how you die. And I don't want to do that. So, you know, um, I mean, people go, well, look how easy it is for you to. And it's like, hold on, hold the fucking phone. You could do just as much damage by accidentally swallowing a lit marijuana joint. So, lots of things are, humans are fragile considering our size and, weight proportions and things like that. We're very fragile living beings. But yeah, the tobacco industry is pushing marijuana. So this whole campaign of how it's all green, it's all smiles, it's people you can trust, it's this, that, and the other, all bullshit. And okay, alcohol, there might be less than scrupulous individuals who run those industries as well. However, it's different. It simply is. That's the point. And the government is going to well, they're gonna fuck around with it. There's no doubt about that. I mean, they should fuck around with it anyway because there have been too many low-level, uh, gangbangers who've been messing around with it for it to be trusted in the state that it's in. Like, I think I've made this point clear before that I had run into an individual who believed his marijuana was organic, and that's because his dealer told him it was, and maybe he felt it was, but reality is, like, you look at this stuff and like 20, 30, 40 years ago, marijuana didn't used to look like that. Didn't used to have that potency to it, that high to it. Because I've spoken to some of the older crowd, and they're reluctant to admit that, but it's the truth. And it's not organic if it's completely different than it was, 20 years ago. That would make it genetically modified, which means it is not organic. It is not in its original state. And I work in the food industry, so I know things in their original state aren't necessarily good either. I mean, there are plenty of vegetables that back in history that weren't very good. Anyway, a lot of people like to say that wheat is not very good, and that they could create some sort of a drug that the government can do this, where they can create one that will create the same psychological effects in the brain as alcohol. And then they simply add it to water and add other ingredients to make it look and taste like alcohol, but it won't be made with the traditional ingredients like wheat, barley, and all that. That I am opposed to because that's just fucking around with things, and I don't like it. I mean, Big Pharma, they're sticking their big nose in everyone's business far enough as it is. And this, pursuit of science line or, any other bullshit excuse they would have, in this capitalist society that we live in, they can go fuck themselves with an iron rod and, like scalding hot iron rod. And, oh, I shouldn't use the word iron because that was on the title on my name on my channel. Oh well, I didn't mean it that way. Sometimes a word doesn't necessarily have to mean one thing in particular. It could, mean other things that, forget I said that, all right? I didn't mean it that way. Yeah. So, yeah, like alcohol in moderation, in the right company, and obviously no drinking and driving. Um, don't have a fight with somebody unless you have to, of course, because they're going to fight you. But remember, there are probably more fights that are by people who are sober because they'll look for a guy who's drunk or something like that, and they'll go, "Oh, we can rickroll this guy real easily." And they could because drunks are sloppy uh, barroom barbarians when they go to fight. Me, I'm not an aggressive person when I drink. I'm fairly docile. I've said that before, definitely. And alcohol, this is like it's the kind of headspace I like, where that's what helps me feel relaxed. A joint does not, like, not that I smoke marijuana, but the smell of it and how I've seen other people while they're smoking. And, for the most part, they simply act like themselves when they're smoking marijuana, which is not the truth about alcohol. You get idiots all the time going, "Oh, your true self comes out when you're drinking alcohol. You show your honesty in your mistakes and blah blah blah, and you can't hold your lies in and things like that." No. What you perceive as the truth at the time is what goes on when you're drunk. And you may be a bit more relaxed in the sense that you might say something you shouldn't have, but all in all, it's not the only determining factor. Uh, I mean, the disadvantage to alcohol is that people can be verbally manipulative. And all of a sudden, you could be the innocent person, and you just happen to have had a few drinks, and it doesn't matter. You're wrong. And that part of society is bullshit. Um, because PC people like to prey upon alcoholics and things like that because they figure, well, he's an alcoholic, he'll always be wrong. And when I say PC, people go, "Oh, he means politically correct." I don't mean that. I mean passive aggressive cunt. That's what they are, passive aggressive cunts. They're just as bad, if not worse, most of the time, and they hide themselves under their sanctimonious cloak and act like they're better than everybody else. Excuse me, no, you're not. You're a cocksucker. You go about it in a sleazy, dirty way. That's all. And I mean, okay, alcohol, I'm not going to be a hypocrite here, has had, throughout history, there have been people who have abused the substance, and it's been bad for you, and they've self-medicated and all that sort of stuff, all that other kind of crap, right? Uh, However, this whole self-medication thing, that's a bullshit line. Uh, what it really is the pharmaceutical companies do not want you taking anything unless they approve of it. And because they approve of it does not mean it's good. Them approving it is them wanting all the money. And the alcohol companies and big pharma, they are intertwined a little bit, but for the most part, the alcohol companies are a singular, or they're their own thing. I mean, obviously they got to agree to the rules of the federal government and things like that. But big pharma is trying to grab into that market, and it's obvious because they're pushing marijuana. So here's where the hypocrisy lies. It's not that there are individuals, um, aside from the Mothers Against Drunk Driving, but there are also individuals who are simply looking for ways to make money. That's the bottom line, whether you want to hear it or not. And they found it easier to tap into a marijuana industry because cigarette industry is on its heels, and therefore they have a weaker ally that they can ally themselves with to acquire marijuana, which is more popular uh, and not legal yet, and help promote the idea of that being legal so that they have a strong, conglomerate of industries working for a singular goal. And of course, Mothers Against Drunk Driving jumped on board with that because they go, look how throughout history, reefer madness, that'll be good enough to persuade your local idiot that smoking marijuana is better. And, even the fellows who feel sick when they're anywhere near it, eventually their bodies will get used to it. I'm gonna have to, deflate that ego balloon of theirs because no, 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 no. I don't know how many times in different ways I can say no, but it ain't me you really got to convince, although you couldn't. There are people who actually have money in the alcohol industry who are not going to put up with your shit. And you know what? I'm in full support of them doing whatever they have to do to tell Big Pharma that they gotta fuck off because the sanctimonious rule book that they like to throw around saying, oh, we have the right to do this, we have the right to do that, and look at the wonderful things the pharmaceutical industry has done. They've cured polio, they can treat malaria, blah, 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 blah. But they don't mention the thousands upon thousands of fuck ups they've done. So, Big Pharma, they can, I guess I could take a liter and a half bottle of wine, turn that son bitch sideways, and stick it straight up their candy marijuana loving asses. Because there are some people who do not agree with them. And I would be one of those people, and I happen to be, the chump who has to say it on the television. Not the television, the YouTube. There is no difference. It's a person talking on the computer to a bunch of people who are assholes. That's what TV's always been about. Yeah, like I can understand, the benefits. Because even in something, as I said earlier, that you don't agree with, you can acknowledge that there are benefits. Like, for example, not to get back to downtown East Side, disgusting parts and things like that, and how it may eventually gentrify that area. Kind of turn people off of wanting to use hypodermic needles and things like that because those are disgusting and dangerous. Um, that is a benefit. But there are other ways of properly managing that. And people like to go, but their rights and blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? My rights were taken away from me when I went into mental health. I had zero rights. So there are plenty of people out there who have no problem taking people's rights away. So why don't we just herd them all up into trains and send them up north, and let nature take its course, and put them in like kind of a shanty town, and observe it, and see how that goes. Or what we can do, we could create a giant spinning wheel in under the city, right? And they all have to push it like 19 hours a day, right? And that could generate electricity or anything. I mean, the whole, referring to people as Untermenschen is not very nice, of course not. But, there are plenty of people who looked at me like I was scum, and I'm like, the fuck is your problem, man? I didn't fucking do anything to you. I don't even know you. And you got a misrepresentation of me because you're a stupid, ignorant cunt who just believes hearsay. You don't actually, because that's the problem with society, is a lot of people don't actually even need proof of anything to, throw a wild accusation, and it doesn't even have to be even anywhere close to the truth, and people will believe it. And this is a common phrase against alcoholics. They go, "Oh, you don't remember you were drunk." All right, sometimes I don't remember things when I'm drunk, or other people don't remember things when they're drunk. That is true. People do black out, and that's not an excuse. However, sometimes people do remember things when they've been drinking. And when I've been drinking, I have remembered things, and I've had people still say, "Oh, you don't remember you were drunk." And that's, the excuse they use in any kind of situation where they've got to, when they're arguing against someone else's, they go, "He was drunk, he doesn't remember, he's drunk, he doesn't remember." And that gets back to the PC, passive aggressive cunt. And no, they're not more respectable people just because they don't throw the fist. Why do you think I made that video the other day with Max Domi and Aaron Ekblad? I mean, I don't know the backstory behind that, but there's no way Max Domi, didn't throw that fist at him for no reason. Because that's what politically correct people like to do, passive aggressive cunts, is they like to go, "Oh, there's no reason for that, blah, 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 blah." And Aaron Ekblad, I thought he was Swedish for a silly moment for whatever reason, but I checked it up and he's actually Canadian. Them two! With their cunt behavior. If they're on the ice, Max Domi is not an idiot, as I said. And Aaron Ekblad, him pulling he's been fucking around, and, "Oh, but not in the face, not in the face." Then, I don't know, sometimes that's stone cold justice is what it is. And does Canada really want to look like that in the public eye? A bunch of whiny little bitches that go, Guantanamo Bay. uh, wow, the people that went into Guantanamo Bay kind of like deserved it most of the time. I won't say they didn't make mistakes, but how did the conversation turn into that point is what I'm questioning now. So I'm going to change the topic. All right. Okay, let's look at the problems with alcohol. Alcohol can cause you to be fat and lazy. So can marijuana, actually. Marijuana does the same thing. It makes you not want to do anything. And it does bring into question what is the end game result that the Justin Trudeau government has for marijuana. What sort of marijuana stoner type person do they want to envision society having? And I gotta tell you, I have no idea what it is. And I guarantee you, the idiots who are smoking it right now don't know what it is either. Um, I would think it's to pacify people. That's usually what it's been associated with, and perhaps liven up artistic ability and things like that. Very rarely in history has it ever done that. It's all a big giant exaggeration. Because like I said, I live in British Columbia, and I've run into marijuana smokers. You can't help but run into them, and they are not more creative. They're not more intelligent, and they do have a lot of fundamental issues with their mental health and things like that, just because marijuana is a bunch of overrated shit. Um, I mean, 1,000 years ago, would any of my ancestors even have thought of picking up a doobie? No. I don't even think of picking up one now. And I did say, well, those cancer patients that, go, wow, this is a wonderful thing. I feel so much better. Yeah, they put, some, you got some special one where they put some magic pixie dust on it. And, that's good for them. But if I were in a position where someone told me I had cancer, I'd be like, yeah, that's all right. You keep your miracle crap away from me. I don't want it. It sounds like a load of bullshit to me. That's what I'd say. Um, and this is an important topic because it will piss off a lot of people, me simply saying this. Because as I told you, we live in a society where you're allowed to have an opinion, but you're not allowed to have an opinion. And there will always be some jackoff who shows up on the scene who tries to tell you, no, this is the way, yeah. No, you're a fucking idiot, and you can keep saying that all you want. You can always say that. And I will simply acknowledge that we agree to disagree, whether you agree to that or not, and walk away from you because there is no point in trying to just persuade you because you are simply not going to listen. It's not a complicated psychological trick what they do. What they try to do is belittle your beliefs and push you down. That's what they try to do. Me, I don't care. If somebody wants to smoke marijuana, that's their business. It's not mine. However, it is a problem when they start saying, well, we got to start taking resources that would have gone to alcohol and start putting them into marijuana because I want like a better deal on like my doobie. And it's like, oh, you want a better deal on your doobie while at my expense because I'm drinking alcohol and therefore alcohol prices will go up? Excuse me, get the fuck out of here, fucking halfwit. But like I said, I am concerned. Like, we don't need pharmaceutical grade alcohol either, where there isn't actually any of the normal ingredients in it. It simply tastes and looks like alcohol, but it's made from other stuff. Because, that's kind of a mutant abortion of what alcohol should be. And, there have been mutant abortions of what alcohol should be in the past, but that is where they are in the past, decades long ago. And that's not the way it should be moving forward. A lot of people go, well, the ingredients to make alcohol, they need a lot of water, they're not particularly nutritious and things like that, and I've explained that before too, where it's, the farming techniques needed to be improved upon. And it was the foundation was for alcohol consumption and for food production and before tobacco consumption. But moving forward, to come along and say, is a bunch of horse shit. And, not that it's even been proven or mentioned in the media how growing marijuana is superior to growing wheat or, barley and hops and things like that as well. That doesn't get talked about on the media. And there's a reason for that. What exactly that reason is, I'm not entirely certain, but I suspect it's because it's not, less costly as far as water consumption, time it takes to grow, and things like that, blah, 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 blah. And not only that, it will require increased security. I was just watching a CBC thing where a guy's like, yeah, I'm growing marijuana, I've been growing it, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, he had like a tiny greenhouse. And the thing is, the only reason he didn't have security there is because nobody knew it was there. He was doing it illegally. And, I am a firm believer, it doesn't matter if something was legal before. If it becomes illegal now or in the future, someone could look back upon it and go, that's wrong. You shouldn't have been allowed to get away with that. I agree with that. Because too many bureaucrats, think they can get away with doing bad things, particularly the old crustaceans that are making bad decisions because they're stupid. Don't think because someone's old that means you have to respect their intelligence. I mean, sometimes they got useful information to say, sometimes they are intelligent. But being old does not mean you are intelligent. And there are a lot of old time weed smokers, and it's like, I'm sorry to tell this to you, but it's simply a thing that has to be done. You are not getting marijuana as the dominant product um, for recreational use over alcohol. That isn't happening. And it would be very, very, very easy to dispel the myths about marijuana. And, ironically, I went downtown and, I don't know how well known I am, how outspoken I am about marijuana, but there were people who were puffing away, right, as they were walking along. And they made a deliberate effort to try and like blow marijuana in my general direction. Like I'd never seen any of these people before. It happened like 3 or 4 times. There were different people who were doing that, and it's like, get that stinking shit out of my face. And some people go, oh, but marijuana smells nice. Oh, I'm sure it does, but try entering a room where there's stale marijuana everywhere. A lot of people start to feel like physically ill, unless you're a marijuana smoker, of course. Then you go, wow, this smells like my pajamas. This is perfect. And it's like, okay, you go ahead and do that. I know alcohol has its smells too, but guess what? They don't have, the same kind of effect. And, there's issues here. And I'm not going to waver in my opinion. Okay, there might be some things that I'm factually incorrect about based on my limited information. However, if told in a plausible way why I'm wrong, then perhaps I may take that into consideration. However, Canadians don't like doing that. Canadians like saying, "No, this is the way it is, and you have to believe it." And it's like, who the fuck made you the person who dictates to me what I am to think? The fuck is this? Is this Stasi East Germany? Is this Soviet Russia? Is this communist China? Or I gotta look over my shoulder for some creeper who's gonna go, hey, I'm gonna tattle on this guy. Fuck you. Sneaky little bastards. And the question does have to be asked to people who indulge in both marijuana and alcohol, because there are plenty of that. And it's like, which do you want? Do you want the marijuana or do you want the alcohol? And I think if explained properly, because I'm not sure if, well, I know most people don't have the intellect to be able to understand more complicated things other than the plain generic rhetoric of the internet. And guess what? Explain properly to someone. You give all the facts for marijuana, all the facts for alcohol. That doobie's gonna drop out of their hands so damn fast it'll make your head spin. All it's gonna do is it's that slow side effect where it goes clunk, clunk, and then that's it. I like it like on TV or something when it's epic when something falls out of someone's hands and onto the ground. That's what's gonna happen to the doobie. And like, you know, okay, marijuana is also associated with hippies and things like that. There's no doubt about it. That's really where it really made its namesake in the beginning is with hippies, and well, at least in the U.S. and Canada, anyway. And it's like those were the douchebags who weren't doing anything but bitching. That's all they were doing was smoking weed, listening to music, and bitching. And it's like, hold the fuck on. There were people who were actually, like working, fighting for what a passive aggressive cunt would be like, my freedoms. When, yes, they were stupid because you don't know what's fucking going on outside of your country because you're an ignoramus. They'd say things like, "Oh, Vietnam for the Vietnamese people, man." No, 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 no. You mean Vietnam for the Chinese Communist Party, don't you? That's what you really mean, don't you? And they go, "No, but no, what? Yeah, that's right, you stupid stoner motherfucker. You're wrong. You're a fucking halfwit. And singing songs going, peace and happiness. Shut up! And, there were funny songs like, what was it, Country and the Fish? Or something like that? Where he was singing about, going to Vietnam and, fighting a war and he didn't give a damn with the reason why, essentially. That's associated with being a hippie song, and people go, "Oh, that's satire, man." But you listen to that song, and it doesn't mean what you think it does. Uh, it's literally saying, putting a positive spin on, a negative situation, because of course war is a negative situation. However, so is a bunch of belligerent fucking marijuana activists who are a bunch of hypocrites. That's also a negative situation. You got to take things into context. And it's like different situation, different solution. And I'm not budging on this topic. I have not run into an intellectual who is capable of convincing me that marijuana is better than alcohol. And I know the tactics they'll use. They'll, pull up their Rolodex of when every example of when alcohol has been a problem, this, that, and the other, and then we'll bombard you with statistical facts. They'll go, oh, well, in 19 whatever, there was wood alcohol and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, you could gross somebody out about anything in society. Like, what's something that would disgust people and would destroy an industry if it became wide known? How about, I do not have one of these objects. I am aware of them, even though I'm an involuntary celibate, based on the internet. But women have dildos, right? And guess what? They're made in Asia. They shove that dildo into whatever orifice they do for whatever reasons. It's not my business. Um, those are made in Asia. You don't know what those things have been through before they get to North America. And as a matter of fact, because the Asians are bitter, that they're so damn poor, they need a little morale boost. So, Western capitalists may say, well, we'll cut them a deal. They can do something disgusting to the dildo before it even arrives here. And, we simply won't tell the Western women about it. And it's like, ew, gross. I mean, dildos are gross to start off with, but that even makes it worse. Uh, so, I try not to buy anything made in Asia if I can help it. I did watch that documentary, Not Made in China. I thought it was pretty good at the time. It was years ago I watched it, right? So, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't as good as I remember, or they couldn't say as much as I wanted them to say, or, whatever. But, um, yeah, like it's amazing. There's so many fascinating topics in the world, and there's always an element of cringe and disgust about them. And I would like for alcohol not to be a subject of cringe and disgust. And the people who have fucked up, and alcohol has been a dominant factor in how they fucked up. That's not true. Without the individual, the alcohol is harmless. So if somebody fucked up while they've been intoxicated, it is that person who fucked up. And it doesn't matter if alcohol was a factor or not, that is to be taken into consideration, but it is that person who fucked up. And, that is simply part of history and how we have to kind of pull up our pants and act like an appropriate society. Uh, and not be the pushovers that people like Justin Trudeau think that we all are. A lot of people go, I can't be bothered, I'm too lazy, this, that, and the other. I've got obligations over here. I work for a living. Those are all solid reasons. But at the end of the day, and I'm not one of these. Uh, revolution. We must overthrow the proletariat or the working class. What's the other one? Oh, the monarchy. Oh, we'll say the monarchy. We have to throw them over so that we may all have frog legs for lunch every day. Um, very well. No, I'm not one of those types, but I am saying, like, wake the fuck up, people. Uh, like these shitheads really fucking want to take away our right to drink alcohol. And you have to understand, they're like, some of them are like fucking Terminators. Like that's all they think do, and that's all that happens from them all the friggin' time. Is all they want to do is destroy alcohol, and they'll do anything to do it. And because it's presented as marijuana is green, it's healthy, it's a colorful looking color, it's organic. Uh, no, 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 no. It's backed up by very vicious people who work for vicious business opportunity. And, society isn't quite like how it should be. Like, people, they look at me and go, "Oh, you look mentally unwell. Are you taking your medication?" And meanwhile, they'll walk away and go in another room and fucking go into hysterics, fucking either or lunacy or something like that. And because of their position in society and the money they have, they somehow get away with that. And it's like, the fuck is wrong with this picture? Corruption is what's wrong with it. And marijuana is just as corrupt as everything has ever been throughout society. And, you take one good look at the movies that are coming out, and it's like, whoa. Uh, you know, um, I don't know what Justin Trudeau's plan is. He probably has this grand vision that, things should be different. And, I took a look at the headlines of some of the new movies that are coming out and going, I wouldn't enjoy watching this. I don't think it's something that should be available for anybody to watch. And I look at movies of the past, and they're benign for the regular person, but for the government, they're like, oh no no no, we can't have people allowed to think that way. We must, over the decades, slowly swish that out of common knowledge, and we'll just present a new vision of what society should look like, which is people being utterly shit scared and not understanding it at the time, but when they, at the snap of a fingers, they wake up and they go, ah! When they need people to, particular adolescents and things like that, that begins to treat people like animals rather than human beings. I mean, a human being is an animal, but you know what I'm saying here, man. It ain't right. Um, anyway, I am very, very much in support of the alcohol industry. And, not everyone within the alcohol industry is against marijuana. As I said, there are plenty of people who smoke marijuana and drink alcohol. However, they are not the dominant force in alcohol. There are people who want to preserve it too. And maybe some of them are, less than charismatic individuals. Fair enough, but that's you gotta take a side. They've been telling us for this subliminally for years that we got to pick a side, that there's going to be civil war and all this kind of shit. And the most profit-making side to take a stance on right now is marijuana resources versus alcohol resources. Neither product is fully going to go away, but obviously, if there's less money for it, there'll be less of it, and it'll be more expensive, and this, that, and the other. So I implore the people who do drink alcohol, please do not drive. Um, it's like not cool. Um, yeah, there's that. However, but don't support marijuana, because marijuana is just as bad. Like, because for every car crash, whatever that's been associated with alcohol, given the tobacco industry is backing marijuana, somebody's died a horrible death of esophageal cancer. painfully and slow. So, yeah, you can take your sanctimonious bag of crap and, sprinkle it on your toast or something like that. Anyway, I've yammered on at an early hour in the morning for 45 minutes now. And I'm sure there are individuals within my household that would like some sleep. However, I'm not one of those individuals because I have to take medications of psychiatric nature that determine when where I can go to sleep. And I don't like that idea. I don't like that idea at all. I don't like people telling me what to do. They wouldn't like to be told what to do. Obviously, they'd be more offended by it than me. But it's like, fuck off and let me get back to my business already. Anyway, talk to you guys later. Have a good one. Unless you're a marijuana supporter, then you can go fuck yourself.